When I was a yeshiva student, we used to joke, every Tuesday, I think it was, Thursday. So one day we had pizza. So we used to joke that the cook would produce greater miracles than the miracle of Hanukkah. Hanukkah was enough oil for one day and lasted 8 days. This cook took enough oil for 8 pizzas and put it into one pizza. That was how it went.
It was a greasy one.
Yeah, that was certainly something interesting. Okay. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abridged code of Jewish law, chapter 100, and we're up to paragraph 21, Chaf Aleph. So we've been discussing a kohen doing the priestly blessing. So we started this yesterday, but we'll get to finish it now. Horag es nefesh b'mezid. If this kohen had, God forbid, killed someone intentionally, and again, as we pointed out yesterday, we're not speaking about in self-defense or was a member of the IDF to protect people from terrorists. We're talking about he killed someone unjustly. Afil asat tshuva, even if that person does teshuva, lo yisa es kapav, he can't bless the people. He no longer has the ability, he's no longer a conduit for the blessings to come. And let's point out another idea over here. Although teshuva can repair everything, it doesn't necessarily repair consequences in this world. Meaning that there's two levels of consequences of one's actions. So on the one level, there's a spiritual damage the person does to himself by doing something wrong. So we'll keep with the example of taking a life, God forbid. So there's two things happen here. One is that a person was killed. There's a person no longer living in the world. That's consequence number one. Consequence number two is the spiritual damage this murderer did to themselves by doing such a terrible act. Now, teshuva can repair the second one. Teshuva can repair the spiritual damage, but it doesn't bring back the person who was killed. And therefore, there are still consequences. So, when there was a Sanhedrin, a Jewish Supreme Court, and we had the Jewish justice system, that person may be executed. Now, even though he's done teshuva, there's two things. This is
Rabbi. What about Pinchas? Pinchas ben Elazar.
Well, Pinchas, that wasn't a murder. That was the appropriate action at the time. So you had someone publicly rebelling against Moshe, who had a quasi status of a king, and also what they were doing, the immoral act, and in public. And under those circumstances, it was the appropriate thing to do.
It was still a killing.
Yeah, but it wasn't a murder.
Right.
So I just want to also point out, in the Seres Adibris, we normally call the 10 Commandments, it doesn't say thou shalt not kill. It says you can't murder. There is a difference. I mean, usually, most of us, and again, I'll just use I think the clearest example, black and white example. Well, let's say a member of the IDF, and there's a terrorist trying to kill people, and the only way to stop him is to take him out first. That's not murder. That's killing, but it's certainly not murder. He's taking the necessary action to save lives.
It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah.
It's a mitzvah. All right, that's right. When something is the appropriate action, then it's a mitzvah, correct? So not only is it not an avera, not only is it not a sin, it's a mitzvah under certain circumstances. Majority of people under majority of circumstances, killing someone would be murder. I mean, it's But there is a time and a place, and again, I'm not trying to make light of taking a life, God forbid, but he was speaking about a coin that he amazed it on purpose. He unjustly took a life. He was a mafia hitman, but then
So
he changed his ways.
Rabbi, so why doesn't it use the term ratzah? And
we're gonna
because it says harag, he killed. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes no difference whether.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, if it was in Chumash, maybe we'd be particular on that, on the terminology. Yeah, it's good. This is what he means. He's talking about someone killed, because if he did it let's say, for example, he killed when it was a mitzvah, he doesn't have to do tshuva. What else to do tshuva for? Give him a medal. So this guy, in other words, even though he did tshuva, he had a wayward childhood and he got led down the wrong path and he did terrible things, and then at a certain point he's got his life back together, and that's great. And when it comes to repairing the relationship between him and Hashem, it could be he's repaired it totally, but he can't bless the people. There's still a consequence for the actions. Bim harag b'shgoga, that if he kills b'shoigeg. So as we said yesterday, that means accidental. There is a degree of negligence, right? Because if it's totally beyond one's control, there's no responsibility. I gave a silly example yesterday of someone, they're walking down the street and there's an unexpected earthquake and it threw him in the air and he landed on someone, right? There was no intention. He wasn't even doing anything irresponsible. It was something beyond his control. He's not responsible for that death. Shogeg, there's some degree of negligence, minor degree. And as we said yesterday, the classic case is the person who chops wood in the forest, and he doesn't check his axe first, doesn't check his tools. And the axe head was a little bit loose, and in the swing it goes flying off, and it kills someone. So he had no intention to strike someone. He certainly had no intention to kill anyone. But there was a degree of negligence, because he should have either checked his tools or repaired his tools or something like that. And he didn't. So that person, the Asad Tshuva, if he does Tshuva, nice as kapov, then he can bless the people. I'll just point out, actually, in the large Shulchan Aruch, there's difference of opinion. So it's not necessarily so simple. So God forbid someone's in that situation, they should consult their communal rabbi before they go bless. Now, v'chein mumma. Now, a mumma, they're probably going to translate as apostate or something like that, but there's two types of mumma. One type of mumma is someone who does avodah zarah, idol worship. In other words, they've left Judaism and they now serve an idol. Another type of mumma is someone who publicly desecrates Shabbos. Now, I'm also going to point out over here, we discussed this once at an earlier time. Today, we're much more lenient with the second one, and I'll tell you why. In times past, if someone didn't keep Shabbos, they were essentially making a stand. They do not believe Hashem made the world. Because why would you keep Shabbos? Because Hashem created the world. Hashem did creative activity for six days. On the seventh day, Hashem ceased creative activity. Therefore, we do creative activity for 6 days. And on the seventh day, we cease doing creative activity and we connect to the spiritual. So when a person keeps Shabbos, they're testifying that there is a God who created the world. And God forbid the opposite. If someone would not keep Shabbos, they were essentially making a statement that in their view, there is not a God who created the world. So therefore, that puts someone outside of Judaism, essentially. The same as idol worshiper, someone who went to another religion, essentially. So we're saying, so that person was not counted in a minyan, that person, etc. Today, most people don't keep Shabbos. They're not making a statement. They either just didn't get brought up with it, or they got lazy. It's not a deliberate statement about whether there's a God or not. And so today, majority of authorities do not consider the majority of people who don't keep Shabbos as a mumma. All right, they look at them as someone who just didn't have the proper Jewish education and various things when they were children. But in concept, it means that. So if you had a mumma, so a mumma they can't bless the people. Now, she'asa tshuva, if he does teshuva, he comes back and fixes himself up. The nicest kapov, then he can now bless the people again. In other words, we don't hold the past against him. The case of the murderer, unfortunately, that life that he took is no longer in the world. The mumma, though, okay, he did actions that were wrong. Now he's not. He stopped, so he can now bless the people. Nasa Gurusha or Chalutza. So a kohen who marries someone who's not allowed to marry. So a kohen cannot marry a divorcee. Everyone else can, no problem with that. But a kohen can't marry a divorcee. And also a Chalutza, so like a semi-divorcee. I'll tell you, it's an unusual case. It happens very rarely that if a person passes away, a married man passes away without children, without any children, then in the ideal world, his brother should marry the wife, and the first child from that marriage inherits and takes over the land in Israel that was given to that father, to the brother. Now, we don't do that today for a variety of reasons. Already in Talmudic times, let's go back a step. If they don't want to marry, they have a process called chalitza that breaks the bond that they have. Now, it's not a bond as strong as marriage. It's much weaker than marriage, but there's still some type of bond. So chalitza breaks the bond. So we'll call it a mini divorce, right? So this is, as we mentioned, that already in Talmudic times, they really did not encourage the yibum, the actual marriage. They encouraged doing chalitza or breaking the bond, because people, each generation drops a spiritual level, and people weren't able to do it for the sake of the mitzvah anymore. People were getting married and having relations for their own, desires, not purely for the mitzvah. So therefore, it was discouraged to do the yibum, to do the marriage, and they would break it off. About 1100 years ago, there was the father of Ashkenazic Jewry, Ben Gershon. He made various decrees. So one of the decrees for Ashkenazim was that Ashkenazim can only have one wife. Once he made that, he also disallowed the yibum at all, and you can only do chalitza. So so a kohen can't marry a divorcee, and he also can't marry a lady that had this chalitza, this break of bond with her brother-in-law, because it's like a semi-divorce. So they can't bless. Another category of kohen who can't bless, a kohen is not allowed to come in contact with a deceased, with a corpse. Now, there are exceptions. There's 5 close relatives, mother, father, wife, and children. Similarly, there's close relatives that they're allowed to take care of their burial and attend their funeral. There's also a concept called a mace mitzvah. If there's no one else to bury this individual, and again, the classic case is, you're in a wilderness. You find the body of a Jew, God forbid. So there's no one else to take care of the needs. It doesn't have to be that extreme, but that's just a classic black and white case. So any of the cases where the kohen was allowed to become tomei, and we'll say spiritually impure for lack of a better translation, doesn't really mean that, but just for lack of a better translation, anytime that he's allowed to become Tomei, then there's no problem. But if he became Tomei when he wasn't allowed to, in other words, he was not behaving in the way a Kohen should behave, then Lo Yisis Kopov. He also can't bless the people. He's lost the ability to be conduit for Hashem's blessings. Unless until he has done teshuva, I hate to say repent because that's such a Christian word, but he's spiritually repaired himself according to the instructions of a Torah scholar. Ashar Averis, now if there was any other Aveir, any other sin for like a better word, they don't hold them back from blessing the people. We all have a Yetzer Hara. No one's perfect. Only Hashem is perfect. And anyone's going to say that they never made a mistake or never messed up in their life. I don't think anyone can say that, right? I always just say that I thank God that, when I was a teenager, they didn't have social media and everything got recorded forever. Otherwise, I might be in trouble now, right? But we've all done silly things and we all messed up, and it's not just when we're young. We're all human. Hopefully nothing too terrible, but it's what happens.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I once thought I was wrong, but I was wrong.
That's right. You were mistaken, huh? So so other things don't hold the person back from blessing. It's either something serious, like being a mumma. It's separating themselves from Judaism. It's taking a life, God forbid. It's or behaving in a way, not in the way Kohen's meant to. In other words, transgressing the specific mitzvahs that a Kohen has. You can't be conduit as a Kohen if you don't live the life of a Kohen. The final case, a cholol, and someone asked a question about this yesterday. Ben asked a question, so we'll just Eina Noises Kapov, he can't bless the people. So cholol means like this: if a Kohen marries someone they're not meant to marry, so let's say a divorcee is an example. So the child is in no man's land. So they're not really a Kohen because they came through a relationship that a Kohen wasn't meant to have. But they're not a Levi or Yisrael either because their father's a Kohen. So they're stuck in no man's land, and they're called a cholol. And this person can't bless the people. And just a side point, means they can't get called up to the Torah as a Kohen. They can't get called up as a Levi, and they can't get called up as a Yisrael. So you either have to give them like a maftir, they can do that, or some shuls make an achron, right, to make extra liyas at the end. It's what happens. So it's a difficult situation for someone. Chof base, number 22. Einen. Right, einen, God forbid. So an einen is someone who they have a close relative passed away who they need to sit shiva for, but before the funeral. So after the funeral, they become an oval, and until the funeral, they're an einen. An einen means that they, as well as being sort of a mourner, they also have a certain responsibility for the burial. Right. So if God forbid someone becomes an einen noises kapov, they can't bless the people at that time, and there's multiple reasons for this. One of the reason is that as we discussed in earlier laws, that both the congregation and the Kohen have to be concentrating on what they're doing. Someone who's in this state, their close relative has passed away, and their pre-funeral don't have a mind for anything. If there's anyone here who has not been in that situation, Hashem should bless you, should stay that way. But I think the rest of us can speak from experience. Someone loses a parent or something, close relative, God forbid, your mind is not focusing on how it should. So they're not able to be a conduit for the blessing. So that's the oinen. That's post the passing, but before the funeral. The ovil. Now the ovil, so this is after the funeral, and there's two different types of ovil. For parents, the ovil period is the availus period is for 12 months. For all other relatives, the close relatives, a sibling, a spouse, child, God forbid, it's 1 month. So the ovil teich shneim asa chodesh al aviv ve'imoi, an ovil within the 12-month period of a mother or father, or teich shloishim al shal krovim, or 1 month for other relatives. Eina noises kopov. He also doesn't bless the people. Now, just to mention, this person, when we say he doesn't bless the people, it means he shouldn't go up. When they call the kahanim, he shouldn't go up. But if he did go up, he doesn't step down. The other ones say they do step down. Also, if this person is in a situation where there's not another coin, we would be potentially, that we can be more, can fill the need. So when he's in that situation, let's say now presuming there are other kahanim, these people should leave the shul before the blessing, before them being called up, until after the blessing's finished, and that way they're not caught in a situation where they sort of sort of shouldn't.
Before Maidim, no?
Yeah, before it's yeah.
Before, right, okay.
Yeah. Now, this is what I said before. If there's not at least 2 other kahanim, never mind, not even 1. Mutter la'avel, this is kapav t'chshneim asa chodesh, al'aviv imoi, t'chshloshim al shal koroivav. Then this coin should bless not only the 1 month for other relatives, but even the 12 months of the parents. So even though he's a mourner, so as we said earlier, if there's only 1 kohen, we can't call out kohanim. We can't do that announcement. So even if there is 1 other kohen in the shul besides him, if there's not 2, so they can call out kohanim, then he should stay also and be part of the 2. And for sure, if there's not another kohen, right? But if there are 2 others, then during that period, he goes out. Now, avol toich shiva. If you have a mourner who's actually in the shiva period, the 7-day intense mourning period after the funeral, could go into koiva meis beregel. For example, they buried the deceased on Yontif. Afilu im ein sham shnei kahanim acherim. Then in that case, even if there's not 2 others, Eina noises kopov, he doesn't go up to bless the people. Again, during that 7-day extreme mourning period, his mind is he's not capable of being able to do the blessing. So that's the laws of being blessed by kohen. It's a shame to end on a negative note, the chapter. We should focus back to the beginning of the chapter of how all the blessings come through the individual and shine onto the people. And it's one of the things, God willing, we're looking forward to. The base of Mikdash should be rebuilt. The Kahanim will bless all the people from the platform in the base of Mikdash. This afternoon wouldn't hurt. And we'll get to see it for real. Okay. So any questions on that before we start the next chapter? Oh, okay. All right. Siman Kuf Aleph, chapter 101. Din achana meyontav rishon, the yontav sheni olachol. Laws about preparation on the first day yontav for the second day, or on the second day for a weekday. Or if you happen to be in Israel, the only day for a weekday. Right? So the issues we have, of course, is we can only do something for a higher level of holiness, not a lower level. So just to give this the general background, we'll go into the details in the chapter. But let's say on Yom Tov, we can prepare for Shabbos, because Shabbos is on a higher level than Yom Tov. On a weekday, we can prepare for Yom Tov or Shabbos, because both of them are higher than a weekday. In theory, of course, it doesn't happen, it's impossible. But in concept, you could prepare second day Yom Tov for first day Yom Tov, because first day Yom Tov is a higher level than second day. Obviously, you can't actually do that because the first day always comes first, right? So you can't. But in concept, I'm just saying, in mental gymnastics, one could. Right. So Aleph, number 1. Kol ha-malachos ha-muturos l'soisam b'Yom Tov. All the malachas you're allowed to do on Yom Tov. So we spoke about cooking and kneading, and we can grind spices that are going to lose their potency if we grind them for Yom Tov, and we can shecht and all these different things. All the things you're allowed to do on Yom Tov. You only can do those for the need of that day. So you can only do on first day what you need done on first day. If you don't need it till second day, well, you have to wait till second day to do it. But to prepare something on the first day for the second day, even Rosh Hashanah, which, as we said, is like one long day. And how much more so, Asa is forbidden. Not only is it Asa is forbidden to do it for first day to second day, but how much more so from Yom Tov to a weekday. You can't do anything on the Yom Tov for the weekday. However, we're going to see there's, I won't say leniencies or tricks. That's not quite the right word, but there are times where it works. So let's give an example. You want to cook for today. So let's say I'm cooking for first day Yom Tov. For lunch, I'm having 10 meat pies. I don't know. 10 pieces of chicken. Okay, perhaps I shouldn't have said 10, but I'm making chicken, making lunch. I'm allowed to take a bigger pot and put a little more in. Even though I don't necessarily need it for today. But and I'm going to end up using the extras the night time, which is the night of the second day Yom Tov, or the next day. Now, this is if I'm cooking all in like a big pot. So let's say so maybe a good example of this would be a chicken soup. So I'm making a chicken soup or a cholent or something, or some type of dish like that, and I put more in the pot. And even though I know I'm putting in more than I'm actually going to end up using, but I'm only doing the one act of cooking. I put the pot on the fire, and when me putting the pot on the fire, what I actually do is unaffected by how much is in the pot. If it meant I had to put 5 shifts on the fire, well, then that's, I'm actually doing extra malacha and for the next day, and that's a problem. But over here, all I did was I put a little extra in the pot, and then I put the pot on the same way I was going to anyway. Then that's allowed. And why? Interesting reason. When you cook more together, you have more ingredients in the soup or something, it gives more flavor. So therefore, it's not only I'm doing for the second day, I'm actually helping the first day by giving more flavor to the food. Anyway, I guess we ran out of time, so we'll finish this halacha next week, God willing. So wish everyone an incredible rest of Hanukkah.
Sei gesund,
enjoy the light.
Hanukkah.
Thank you,
And I
Rabbi.
guess since I probably want to speak to you before Shabbos, have wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank
Hanukkah
you.
Sameach
Thank
to
you.
everybody.
Welcome, Hanukkah.
Welcome,
Shabbos,
Hanukkah.
everybody.